we both learn not to hike in the Sawa.
I was
We
gonna
both
say,
share our worst experiences in the collegiate peaks.
yeah. Zach swears off of collegiates for the rest of his life. Welcome to the Greens and Blues 14er podcast. This episode, Zach hangs from a tree branch. I swear off of hiking partner blind dates. We both get hailed on. And then we sit down and talk about each of our worst 14er experiences. So, Zach, you and I are going to talk about our worst mountaineering experiences today. But before we get into that, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Eric. How are you?
I'm good. I have a business trip coming up, actually flying out tomorrow to Dallas, Texas. In the Dallas area, it's going to be a brisk 91 degrees when I'm there. So I just want to say to those of you that live in Texas, thank you for taking one for the team because I don't know how all y'all do that, but there's no way I could survive in 90-degree weather in May. I
Oh, that's actually not that bad.
It's
I mean,
probably cold for that time of year.
it's that's I think about average. But
Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
I mean, this time last year would have been easily, actually it was into the hundreds in, I mean, I think they had 70, 80 straight days above 100 degrees in Texas. So, yeah, I live about 150 miles north of there. So, we're usually about 5 degrees cooler, which somehow makes it a little bit better, but uh it's yeah, you get a I forget the name of the effect where you have a lot of concrete and a lot of cityscape and a lot of cars and all that. So the Dallas metro area, the Metroplex, as they like to call it, is actually a few degrees warmer even than all that because there's that kind of reflection of heat from concrete and highway and cars and all that. So yeah, it'll be toasty.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, what do you got going on, Zach?
Oh, a couple things. So this is May, as we said. This will probably be released sometime around end of June. So what I'm about to talk about will have already occurred. But I am planning a backpacking trip in the first week of June to north central New Mexico to the Truchas
Mm,
Peaks.
yeah.
Depending on your family schedule, Eric, I may hook you into another peak, West Spanish Peak, on as part of that trip.
Yep.
And my wife and I are celebrating our 15th wedding anniversary this weekend. So
Congratulations. That's awesome. Are you
we
doing
were
anything fun? Any date night or anything?
surprised my lovely wife, Kinsey, with a painting. Not that I made. I have no artistic ability whatsoever, but we had seen a painting at a local shop that we both liked. And it's rare for us to both, we went back and saw it and we both liked it. But for some reason, we never like pulled the trigger on it.
Mm.
And I decided to surprise her with that. And then this evening, so when we got married, we did have a wedding cake, but we had more than anything, we had wedding pies.
Oh, sweet.
And one of the pies we had since we got married in May was strawberry rhubarb pie.
Oh, yeah.
So my wife and I are gluten free. So if anyone's made a gluten free pie, God bless you. Especially with the lattice crust, those are a ginormous pain in the butt because gluten free dough is sticky.
Yeah. Yep.
So I made yesterday a gluten free strawberry rhubarb crisp. And then tonight I am searing a couple duck breasts. So
Oh, wow.
I've got a little quacker that has been sitting in my freezer since Thanksgiving, with our anniversary's name written all over it. I'm gonna sear off a couple duck breasts and then make a cherry rhubarb glaze that goes on it, and then I'm gonna roast some potatoes and drink a whole lot of wine. So
Wow. Look at you, Chef Zach. When am I coming over? Not for your anniversary, obviously, but when am I coming over for dinner in the next few weeks to
You,
experience your new restaurant.
Eric Denton is not far from Norman, Oklahoma,
That,
so
that's true.
you can always make the trip up.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's what I'll be doing, and then I will be going. My chef skills will be going into retirement. Uh,
Oh, that was fast.
yeah. No, I can't claim to be. It's an Eric repair recipe that I've done once before, and you take the bones and you chop them up and you roast the bones, and then you make a stock from them, and then you stew the some cherries and some rhubarb in that stock, and then you sear off the duck breasts and you reduce that cherry rhubarb duck stock thing into like a syrup almost. Then you glaze it onto the duck.
That sounds
So
fantastic.
I hope it is. And if I don't burn anything, I think I'm in shape.
Yeah, I think you'd be good.
So Eric, what are we talking about today?
Well, Zach, we are going to walk through each of our worst mountaineering experiences. And I think, if I'm understanding correctly, I think both of ours happen to be on a 14er. If you're on the mountain, there's a good chance that you're going to at least, I mean, you're outdoors. Hopefully, you're not getting struck by lightning, but otherwise, there's probably going to be at least some good aspects of that trip.
I would totally agree. The two experiences I'm going to talk about still had really fun elements in them, but there were just a couple moments that were bad. And so I guess worst is probably the qualifier here. I would say 99% of my hiking experience has been wonderful, but these are the two worst ones out of the bunch. That being said, I've never been significantly injured hiking. I've
Hmm.
never had a super bad day hiking. Yeah, all of this is made relative by that fact, right?
Yep. Yep.
So
Good call.
we thought it would be fun, perhaps funny, perhaps humorous to tell some war stories today about our worst 14er experience. I can talk about a peak that I don't have a lot of love for, unfortunately, and
That's
Eric's
true.
gonna talk about his. So, Eric, let's start with you first, my friend. Let's hear your tale of woe. What was your worst 14er experience?
So my worst experience, and I know you mentioned you have two, so you have kind of an honorable mention. I feel kind of lazy, guys. This is the only one I've got. Like I don't know if I have an honorable mention or a close second. Like this one takes the cake. So I've only got one. It happens to be Mount Columbia. So in 2016, I reached out. So I have at this point I have several years of 14er hiking experience. And so I reach out onto the forum on 14ers.com and I say, hey, anyone interested in hiking Mount Columbia this next weekend or whatever it was? And someone stepped up and said, yeah, I'm interested. So I'd never met this guy. I'd met several people through the forum before. I'd met you through the forum before,
Mm-hmm.
and that obviously turned out to be a wonderful experience. And I've met other folks too, and those were good experiences too. This one was not. So I
This,
think that he and
this
I
is a dating story we're about to hear here.
oh, there's gonna be some parallels there. Yeah. So I wish I could have gotten out of there like a blind date, but
like someone have a system where like they have a friend in the coffee
yeah.
shop, right? And if they
Mm-hmm.
tap their head or something, somebody walks
Mm-hmm.
up and says, "Oh my gosh, I know you. Your mom's sick, and
Yeah, you
and you
got to
need
come
to
with
go.
me.
You need to come with me, right?
Yep.
Like
Well,
you may have needed the system.
that would have been nice. Yeah. So I think we met at the trailhead. So this guy and I never met before. We met at the trailhead pretty early in the morning. So started hiking out. And for those that are familiar with the standard route for Columbia, for much of the way, it shares the standard route for Harvard. So, and I knew this because a few years earlier, you and I met hiking Harvard. So I knew
Mm-hmm.
the route, I knew it pretty well. And so we start hiking up. We come to this junction where if you go straight, you're going to hit Harvard. And if you turn right, you're going
You
to
go to
hit Columbia.
Columbia.
Yep.
Yep.
So we wanted to turn right and go east. My hiking partner, who was considerably younger than me, but I didn't know how experienced he was. I think he showed his lack of experience with this decision right here. He said, no, I really feel like we need to go straight. And I said, well,
Was he using the force?
I don't I think that's kind of what it was. He was like Grogu kind of raising his hands and kind of figuring out which direction is east. So I said, well, we could go straight, but we're gonna hike Harvard. I've already done that. I would like to try to hike Columbia today. And he's like, no, I feel like we really need to go straight. That's the direction we need to go. So I came to a little bit of a crisis point in that moment because I didn't want to go straight, but I also didn't want to leave this guy to his own devices because he clearly was not prepared. He didn't know the way. And I just didn't want to see him on the news later that night having to get rescued off of Harvard because he got lost or whatever it was. So I just decided to go with him and said, okay, I'll go with you.
And if there was a Morgan Freeman narrating this, it would be like, and that was a fateful decision.
Yeah, that's right. If we had a movie trailer, the movie trailer guy would be chiming in here. So we continue on towards Harvard, and we probably went about half a mile to three-quarters of a mile up towards Harvard when he stops and he says, "Oh, we're going the wrong way." And I just didn't say anything. Yeah, we're going the wrong way.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. I've been telling you that.
I've known that. Yeah. So he said, "Oh gosh, I always do this." And so Zach, you've seen me on the trail before. We've hung out a lot. You know that I normally try at least to be a patient, calm kind of a person. At least I hope that's
No, you don't try. You do.
I, I was about to jump out of my skin when he said, I always do this. I was thinking, you always do. Who do you do this with? How many times have you done this before? What kind of situations have you done this? And so I was livid at this point, and I thought, oh my gosh, what is happening here? So I kind of just said, okay, Twilight Zone. All right, we'll head back to where we were supposed to turn off. So we did. We quietly and calmly hiked back to the junction. And at that point, we had to turn left to go
Mhm.
east, which we did. We kept hiking a bit longer and we come to this not really steep rock pile, but it took some effort to get up at this rock pile and it was not fun. I think it was probably the main experience that the mountain itself provided that was negative. And I think not, and this may be my get off my lawn moment here. The trail there didn't used to be as nice as it is now. In years past, the CFI has gone in and built quite a nice trail to
They
kind
built
of replace this
a
rock wall that
system
you.
of switchbacks and whatnot.
Yes.
But yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, I think you and I ended up doing it later that summer,
We did.
and we ended up just basically walking up a slope.
That's
Um,
all. Yeah, that's all it was.
yeah,
That was after the CFI did their wonderful work. This guy and I tried to do it beforehand, and that's when we had to go up this rock pile that was just a mess and just not fun. And so it's just a slog getting up this thing. And so we're going and eventually get to the top of this thing. And he turns around and says to me, "Hey, I've got some pot. Do you want some?" And once again, I come to this kind of crisis point where I think, okay, how am I going to respond to this?
and listeners should know Eric does not consume cannabis in any form.
No. So I just said, no, that's not my thing, not my scene. And at this elevation might not be the wisest thing to do. So I I left him to his own decision and he actually just he never pulled it out, so just it never became an issue. Eventually, we make it up to I think around 13.8 and clouds had been coming in, so I was kind of hoping, oh, maybe we'll kind of beat this storm in and sure enough, we didn't. So it starts raining, it starts hailing on us, doesn't
Oh,
feel nice, and it's misty enough to where we can't see where we're going. I can kind of know the general direction of where the summit is compared to where we're standing, but there's no way I can see where we're going, and we're just getting pelted with hail.
yeah.
And so I said, you know what, we need to bail, man. This is not gonna happen today. So eventually we made that decision. We
Had you
turned
not
back.
had the wrong way, you would have made the
We
summit.
would have made it exactly.
Oh,
So that's part of what burned me up about that is as we were going the wrong way, part of me was thinking, boy, is this going to eat into good time that we can have hiking? Are we going to get hit by something that we wouldn't have gotten hit by if we had gone the right way? And sure enough, that's what happened. So yeah, we turned back. Somewhere along the way, he had to borrow a pair of gloves of mine, which I had an extra pair, but so it didn't really burn me up, but still, like, he wasn't prepared and he didn't have gloves with him. So he's like, "Oh, these are really nice Gordinis." I'm like, "I know, I've been using them for years, and now you get to use them, so you're welcome." And eventually we get down and weather's nicer again. We get back to the car and he needs a ride back to Buena Vista. So he says, "Hey, can you drop me off at a hotel?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." And he offers, "Hey, can I buy you lunch for, the whole taking me on this mountain kind of thing?" And I'm like,
nah, I'm good,
"No,
dog.
no, I'm just gonna drop you off and we're gonna be done. We're gonna forget this ever happened." So, even though I clearly have not forgotten. So yeah, I did not make the summit that day. To your point, you and I did attempt it later,
And made it.
and we made it. I think it was a Bluebird day, if
It
I'm
was
recalling correctly.
really nice until we got on the summit, and then once we hit the summit of Columbia, clouds rolled in, and
Is that what it was?
and they cleared for like 1 minute. We took some pictures, and then they like it got sucked back in again. So
Oh gosh, okay. But we at least made it.
we
So,
did. We
yep.
went the right way.
We
Uh, it's amazing what
fancy
happens when you
that.
do that.
Yeah, it's a novel idea. So that is my worst experience on a 14er was Mount Columbia and all the travails that happened along the way there. So
And that hiker shall remain nameless. So,
he will remain nameless. Yeah, I looked back in my old emails. I still have the emails that he and I exchanged just to
okay,
confirm that it was in 2016 and it was around the time period that I thought it was. So yeah, that was it.
interesting.
So I am waiting with bad breath to hear your worst experiences on a mountain, Zach.
You reminded me, I do have a pretty good hail story coming down off Mount Maxwell, which is a 13er in the Sangre de Cristos.
Okay.
Me and a couple friends, one of whom is named Zach
Oh.
Quintero, and then his lovely wife, Lexi Hobing. We got hammered by hail. Not just like, ooh, that kind of hurts hail, like golf ball size hail
Oh yeah.
above timberline. And we hadn't made the summit because of lightning. So like we didn't get a summit and we got creamed by hail that day. That really sucked.
So that's not your honorable mention. You got two that
I
are
sh-
worse than that?
I don't may for some reason in my head that one doesn't stick out as that bad.
Oh man, you've got a couple of doozies coming up, I
Well,
I
maybe I do.
sense.
So I have a couple. One is my honorable mention, and it's just because of one incident. So again in the Sangre de Cristos, I was setting out to hike Tejeris Peak. So Tejeris Peak is just south of the Crestone Group, north of the Great Sand Dunes. It's a really cool, prominent summit. If you go on Lower Sand Creek Lake, it's got this kind of massive granite monolith. Looks really cool and imposing. I was in great shape. I was hiking in, and there's a stream you have to cross. And anyone knows like stream crossings can be like what I probably should have done in hindsight is just I searched high and low for a place to cross. I should have just taken off my shoes,
Yep.
walked across barefoot, put my shoes back on, gone about my merry way. But I found a tree bridge and I thought, I'm gonna do this. Like
Uh-oh.
that looks fine to me. So it's about 40 yards north of where I should have crossed. So I start crossing this tree bridge. I get about 2 or 3 feet on this thing. So I'm not even over the water yet,
Mm-hmm.
thankfully. And I slipped and fell off this thing.
Oh.
The tree bridge was about 3 or 4, probably about 4 feet above the ground. Like it was just kind of suspended above a bank.
Mm-hmm.
So I slipped and fell. And a couple things happened when I fell. I fell backwards and to the side. So I didn't fall on the tree bridge. I fell off it. And as I'm falling, my pants snagged on a
Oh,
piece of the tree bridge that was sticking up. And I wear Mountain Hardwear hiking pants. And so it punched through the pant and then it ripped up as I fell down.
oh
And
no.
it caught on the elastic on the bottom. There's like an elastic. So that's like held it there, which meant
Hmm.
that so I fell back, I hit my head and my back on the ground, but then I'm laying on the ground with my legs stuck on this tree. My legs didn't come with me. I'm
Yeah.
stuck in this on this tree, hanging upside down.
Oh my gosh.
So I had to do like a Mission Impossible crunch up from like a basically laying vertical or a vertical position. I had to crunch up and release my leg and then
Yeah, like a
fall
flip
again.
almost.
Uh, and fell back onto the ground. Right as I did that, a couple people walked by and they're
I
like,
was
"Hey,
gonna
you
ask if
okay?"
anyone saw that. Oh no.
There's a fair number of people that camp in at the Sand Creek Lakes, and a couple people walk by. "Hey, you okay?" "Oh yeah, I'm fine. Just hanging out." I was so embarrassed.
Practicing my
Um,
gymnastics here.
so I do a little self-diagnosis here. So I look down, like my pant leg is ripped from right below the knee, all the way down, and it's kind of like frayed and tattered and
Oh my
stuff. I look
gosh.
like a hobo.
Oh.
Um, I've got a pretty good gash in my leg. It wasn't
Mm,
deep, it wasn't stitch worthy because it was right along the shin, so it just kind of cheese grated my
okay.
shin,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
just blood all over the place. Right? And so I kind of did a moment there, and this is the beginning of my hike, and I was like, can I go? Am I good? And I was like, you know what? I'm taking an Advil. I always keep duct tape in my pack, as listeners may know.
Mm.
So I duct taped up my pants. The duct tape came off, within about 20 minutes, FYI. And
Oh
so
gosh.
I just so I proceeded to hike up to Harris Peak and ended up summiting that day. But I summited with like my left pant leg just like I look like Steve Martin from The Jerk. Is just this frayed pant leg, and it was all over the place, and I had blood all over my shins.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
that's pretty good times.
Wow.
And for anyone that's ever hiked to Harris, there's a pretty good class 3 up climb. I may have made it class 4 unintentionally, and I remember going up it and like a little piece of my frayed leg like snagging on a rock as I'm like
Oh
going up
no.
this rock wall. That's my honorable mention. And
Oh my gosh.
I would only say because the rest of my day was actually quite great. I really enjoyed hiking to Harris Peak. We should do an episode on it at some point, but I had just a really fun day after that. So, um,
Wow.
actually, I'll add one more thing. So after that, I'm hiking along and I run into these two young ladies that are hiking up. So you have to bushwhack to go up to Harris Peak because it's a 13er. And
Yep.
so I meet them in the middle of the bushwhack, and it was really clear they did not want a hiking companion that day. They did not want to hike with somebody else, much less a guy on his own with a tattered leg. They
With
probably
the
thought I was
yeah, pants that are shredded.
some crazy man. And but I noticed that the girl had a sidearm. She was as a
Mm.
9mm pistol,
Yep.
and I thought to myself, they may be really afraid of people that look just like me on this hike. So I was like, I'm just going to hike on over here. And so I just and I never saw them again. They didn't summit or anything. So,
Oh. Hmm.
anyhow, that's my honorable mention. My perhaps dishonorable mention, my worst experience, happened on Mount Princeton. So, Sawatch Collegiate Peaks featuring prominently in our worst experiences here.
Those poor collegiates.
If anyone knows, you need to know two pieces of information to really picture this. So Princeton's, if you have a high clearance vehicle, it's a pretty easy hike because you make the drive up this super long road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it takes forever.
Takes The road goes forever.
Yep.
And then once you get to the top of this, you can park at like some radio towers or
Mm-hmm.
something. Then it's not all that far from there. The other piece of this information is that the car that I possessed at the time was a 2004 Toyota Echo,
Oh, the echo comes back.
or no, 2002 Toyota Echo. So a blue Echo. So I set out that morning and I thought I could get a ways up that road with the Echo. Well, the first thing that happens is I get to this, I'm not even started up the road, right? Like I get to this ravine and if you've got a Subaru or anything else, you cross it no problem. I can't.
Oh my
The
gosh.
Echo's got maybe a quarter inch of clearance. It's like a it's,
Oh my gosh.
so I was like, ah, crap. I'm in good shape though at this point. I'm living in Copper Mountain. I was like, I can do this. I got this. So I just park the car right there and I start hiking up this road. And this road goes on forever. I
Yep.
have my dog with me. There's no water on this road. So like
Mm.
Lacey and I are just going up this road for forever. And it is dusty and it's not enjoyable.
Yeah.
And it's a 14er. Nobody passed me until I get
Really? Not in a
almost
car?
no one. Like
Oh
I was
wow.
gonna like walk in the middle of the road, so they had to take me, right? No.
That's a good
So
strategy.
until I get to about two-thirds of the way up, this copper gold Dodge Durango comes up the road. Like you can hear it, like, and I was like, man, this is intense. Better get all the way. So I grab Lacey, my dog, and we kind of stand to the side, and this guy comes tearing up. He sees me, just nails on the brakes, rolls down the window. Hey, you need a ride up? And this leads to a great story. So I said, "Oh heck yeah!"
Yeah.
I was like, "Are you okay with my dog?" He's like, "Oh, this is a rental. I don't care what you put in this." So I hop into this
Oh.
guy's car, grateful to get out of that for a minute. And so he starts telling me his story, and he's a chatty guy. And it was a guy, I don't remember his last name. His name was David. He was from New York City, and he was one of the producers of 60 Minutes. So this happened about 2010.
Oh my gosh, you're
So
kidding.
he was a producer of 60 Minutes. Was in 60 Minutes interviewed Saddam Hussein. He'd met Saddam Hussein.
No way.
He had some stories, man. This guy was really cool. And so we go, I'm like clutching the dashboard though, right? Like this guy is doing things in a Durango that should not be. So we get to the radio towers. He's like, we can go
Yeah.
further than this. I was like, that road doesn't look good. He's like, ah, yeah, we got this. So he goes flying up past this. We're like hitting rocks. You hear things hitting the undercarriage of this. And
Oh
I'm
my
thinking to
gosh.
myself, well, it's not my car and I could walk down this road, I guess. And we eventually get to the trailhead. We find a little place to park. We hop out and he and I set out and we start hiking. We hike up Princeton.
Hmm.
Um, and Princeton is, if anyone's hiked it, the standard route, it's just a pile of rocks. There's no like cool tundra or anything. It's just a pile of rocks.
Yep.
So we walk up this pile of rocks, and this guy and I are still chatting it up. He started hiking 14ers at some point, and so he would come out every summer for 2 weeks. He'd burn his 2 weeks of vacation every summer to go to Colorado, rent a car, and hike as many peaks as he could. And so we go up Princeton. Like at this point, it's been a long day.
Hmm.
Storm clouds are moving in. Sound familiar?
Hmm.
And it's getting a little dark. He's like, this doesn't look good. I was like, no, it doesn't look good. He's like, we're gonna get this though. We're gonna tag this thing. I was like, all right, dude, let's knock it out. And we proceeded to halt. We were basically trail running up to the top of
Yeah.
Princeton. My dog is right behind us. She has no problems at all, right? She's just
Yep.
skipping rocks. We get to the top of Princeton. I'm like taking out the camera, and right as I take out the camera to like take a picture of this guy David and maybe do a quick selfie, crash, like lightning hits maybe 200 feet from the summit. So we turned right around and we just ran right down what we ran right up. And we were like, we passed people so some people huddled under some rocks because that's how close the lightning
Mm-hmm.
was. And
Yeah.
I was like, I had heard my dad's story, which you guys
Mm-hmm.
heard two
Yep.
episodes ago. And I was like, no, we're not doing that. And I am not huddling with a mar or a
No
pika under a
pikas.
rock.
Yep.
I'm not doing the ground lightning thing. So running down it and getting, now we're getting rained on, right? But there's like lightning crashing. My dog, who is a super dog, totally oblivious to the lightning. She's like finding like little puddles in the rocks and like licking water. I'm like, Lacey, you gotta go. We gotta get out of here. So we're running down. We get to his car, and once we get to the car, it stops raining and the clouds clear up, right? It's Colorado.
Of course. Yep.
And so we hop in and we're like, woo. And he's like, you want to ride all the way down? And I was like, yeah. I don't want to walk that road
The sky
again.
blue. Yeah.
Yeah. So he proceeds to do the weirdest K turn I've ever seen in my life on this road. It's on like a shelf road, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
1 lane road. And he
Oh
like,
yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna get out and spot this.
Mm-hmm.
I was like getting out because I thought he might go down the mountain, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
he turns it around and then proceeds to just do like 40 down this road, hitting ravines like the I think we caught air at one point.
Oh my gosh.
It was legendary. And so we get to my car and I asked this guy, I was like, so, what are you on to? He's like, it's like probably 2 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon. He's like, I'm going up Antero. And I was like,
Oh
that's a
man.
Jeep road.
Yeah.
And he's like, this car's gonna have to make it. So you just I have this picture in my head of this guy just going up the Antero 4-wheel drive road in a stock Dodge Durango and
No way.
ripping the pan out or something. But he he was he's like, I'm gonna try to get 15 14ers on this trip. And then, he had done 8 or 10 the previous summer. He's like, I'm gonna try to do them all in 5 years or something like that, just in 2-week little bursts.
Oh man.
So it's my worst experience because I hated hiking that road. And I still, even though I have a cool story to tell from it, I'm like, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure why I did that hike, right? Like it's a box that's checked, right? But Princeton for me was not all that special. And I never did find more water. Thankfully, I was carrying a lot of water that day. And because I had to give the dog water too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my Princeton story. So, word to the wise, if you're gonna go do Princeton, you need a at least a Subaru to do it. Otherwise, get there at about 2 in the morning and start working your way up this flipping road.
If David in the Dodge Durango is listening, thank you for your kind-heartedness and your lead foot, apparently.
Yeah, reach out to us, man. We exchange numbers. I wrote his name down and I wrote it down on my Colorado Atlas and Gazetteer, which I then lost,
Oh man.
I think like a year later. And so I lost this guy's number. I've always wanted him to, I have the same number. I was
Yeah.
hoping he would reach out to me and we could go, we could go destroy another rental car.
Maybe do an Antero because you Antero's still on the list for you, right? You
Right? I just need someone, if any listeners have a Jeep and they want to drive me 80% of the way up Antero to what, 12,000 feet so I can do the rest by foot.
oh,
I
you can
will,
drive up to about 13.8 or 13.9. I may know someone that did that. So
yeah, it's called cheating,
it
Eric.
is. It is cheating. That's why I
Maybe
don't know. I'm not
drive me to
naming names.
drive me to 12.5 or something. But
There you go.
yeah, if anyone's got a Jeep or an FJ or something like that, let's hook this up,
There you go.
knock it out. I will buy you dinner in BV shortly thereafter. So,
There you go.
those are my worst stories.
Wow. That's so you're proving that you're a mountaineer. You are a chef, as we've
Mm.
confirmed. You apparently are somewhat of a doctor and maybe a haberdasher as well, right, with your duct tape. So you got all sorts of hats that you're wearing, eh?
I would like to say that I'm like an Irishman. I'm a collector of stories. If David is listening to this, I've forgotten your last name. I tried Googling him. David producer 60 Minutes actually produces three Davids, and
Oh gosh,
not entirely sure which one. Anyway,
that's
that
a
was fun.
doozy.
Eric, every tale of woe should have some kind of moral to the story. What have you learned from your worst 14er experience, Eric?
Oh, Zach, it's a good question. I think one thing that I've learned is the power of preparation and just being, I think we talked about this in one of our earlier episodes, having a plan, but also being flexible enough to kind of shimmy around it if you need to,
Mm-hmm.
given the circumstances that you're in. I would say for Colombia, I didn't have to shimmy around my plans. I had to just obliterate them and just get rid of them because we didn't adhere to any of them. Yeah, just the power of being prepared, being ready for anything, and if you have any ability to choose your hiking partners, there's a lot of wisdom in that too. But if you're going on a blind date like I did on that experience, then you may be kind of stuck with whoever you've got at the restaurant there, and you kind of just have to make do. So,
If that happened to you again, would you ditch him?
oh gosh,
And with the warning of, dude, I don't think you should be hiking this. I'm gonna go hike this on my own, but you should go back to the trailhead. Like,
you
and
know,
buyer beware. I'm not saving you.
that would have been a much better way to address it. Yeah, I think that not trying to take some kind of accountability for his decisions
Yeah.
and not trying to, ruin my day in the process, but also at the same time trying to impart a little bit of wisdom of, hey, you really shouldn't be doing what you're trying to be doing here. And so, yeah, that would have been a good way to approach it. What would you say you've learned, Zach, other than if you are offered a ride by high up people for TV shows that are driving Dodge Durangos, you take them up on it.
Always. I mean, always take I always take a free ride, but
Oh yeah.
that's why I wanted the honorable mention in there. One thing that I've learned is if a stream looks too hard to cross on a log bridge, it probably is. And the downside is so asymmetric. Like falling into water or falling on your head and ripping your favorite pair of hiking pants
Hmm.
is very large risk compared to taking off my shoes and walking across.
It's not worth it. Yeah.
Not worth it. So that was one thing that I learned from that. The other thing that I can take away from the Princeton experience, other than don't hike Mount Princeton, is I
Oh,
really I think some adequate recognition of what the hike requires. Like maybe that's why we do the Subi scale. Like that I needed to know a little bit better if I could get up that road. Everything that I read said it was passable for passenger cars up to a certain point. And I was like, oh,
really? What
okay.
point was that? I don't know. I did it in a Wrangler, and that was still not the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, maybe I was getting my info from the wrong place. Maybe I just like thought maybe I just looked at a map. I was like, oh, that looks fine. I mean, I had done some pretty dumb stuff in that Echo, but yeah, I should have taken into account what that was going to require. And maybe when I got there and realized it wasn't going to happen, I probably should have just gone somewhere. I should have gone to Mount Columbia that day, which
Mm,
is accessible from a passenger car.
yeah,
But then I wouldn't have had the joyous experience that I did
a
on
great
that
story.
pile of rocks. And yeah, if storm clouds are moving in, probably shouldn't push it to the summit like we did.
Mm-hmm.
But I will have to say, for a dude that lived in New York 50 weeks out of the year, that guy could fly down a mountain. He could actually fly up a mountain too. He was in good shape.
That sounds pretty impressive overall.
It was impressive.
Wow.
The whole day was impressive. So
Mm.
as we're wont to do here, Eric, do you have a song? I'm thinking of for you something like Bad Romance, since you had
Some
a hiking date gone wrong, some Lady
uh,
Gaga,
some Lady
right?
Gaga in there, right?
Yeah, but what would you say? Because your interests are a little bit more refined than my Lady Gaga reference.
No, no, that's actually a good call there. I'm gonna go a little easy on my hiking partner on that one. Otherwise, Bad Romance would be a good call. So, in the 80s, there was a kind of alternative slash punk band from Minnesota called Husker Du. And They didn't have a lot of hits, but they helped influence a whole generation of alternative rock bands. And so their main songwriter and singer was a guy named Bob Mould, who went on to form another band that was fantastic named Sugar. But since I would say the mid 90s, I think he's been mostly releasing solo material. And in one of his more recent albums, the late 20 teens, he released an album called Patch the Sky, and one of the songs on there is just this really quick 2 minute kind of power pop slash punky burst of musical energy called Losing Time. And it has more to do with, I think, a failed relationship in the
Mm.
verses, but the chorus is really simple. It just says, losing time, lose my mind. And I was doing both those things when we were going the wrong way up Harvard. So I think that's a nice, simple, straightforward song for Columbia for me. So I'm going with Losing Time by Bob Mould.
Excellent. Well, my selection today is I love it that you're going Husker Du, and I'm going with a Robert Johnson song called "The Walking Blues."
Robert Johnson, yes.
The great blues man whose
Mm-hmm.
songs were endlessly ripped off by everybody, including
Yep.
Led Zeppelin, who refused to pay royalties to the Johnson family, which always kind of irritates me.
Yep, indeed.
Um, so this is called The Walking Blues, and it was covered by not the great Captain, but by Roy Rogers. Or I guess, did your mom or your dad ever order you a Roy Rogers when you were like a kid and you went to a
No,
restaurant?
never did. Nope.
I think a Roy Rogers is like a Coke with a cherry in it. Just it's like a virgin, rum and Coke without
Yeah,
the rum.
exactly.
So it's a lovely song where he says, I woke up this morning feeling around for my shoes. No, about it. I got these old walking blues. Woke up this morning feeling around for my shoes, but you know about it. I got these old walking blues. And he proceeds to tell his tale of woe of being left by Bernice. I guess she was his honey at the time, but it's a great tune. Everybody should find it on YouTube. It's kind of snappy. It's good blues.
Mm.
The Roy Rogers version's a fun version too. It's got a good beat. So I had the walking blues going up that flipping road all the way to I think starting at like 8,000 feet or 8,200 feet or
Yeah,
whatever
you
it is.
start pretty low on for Princeton.
Yeah. So that's my song for the day. I could not find a song about hanging upside down from a tree that did not invoke images of Christ or something like
Yeah,
that. So I decided to hang with that one.
I love
So
it. I love it. Well, Zach, this has been a lot of fun going through our worst experiences, even if we had to relive some unpleasant stuff. If David in the Durango or anybody else wants to get in touch with us, maybe share their own worst 14er experience, how can they let us know?
they can find us on our Facebook page, which is the Greens and Blues Podcast on Facebook, or on our Gmail, greens and blues podcast at gmail.com. Or you can drive to Norman, Oklahoma in your FJ Cruiser and pick me up and take me to the top of Antero.
That's right. That's a new one. I like that we have always have new ways to get a hold of us. I think that's a lot of fun. So I like that last one. That might be my favorite.
If you get to Norman, Oklahoma, just ask around. I'm sure someone will point you in my direction. Well, thank you as always for listening, and we'll catch you next time.